Hey everybody, my name is Oda, and today we're going over how to move our current project version from 4.23, I think we're at, to 4.25, and for this I'm going to build from source. I'm going to leave the documentation how to get access to this page, but what I did is I got the release branch, which is currently 4.25. If you're later and you want a specific version, you can scroll down here and select your specific version, and then just click clone or download, and then you can just click download zip to download the zip file. In my C directory, I created a new folder, which is UE 4.25. I go in this folder, open my release folder, let it load. Yeah. And drag all this, what is in the WinRAR file, right over here. Which will take a few seconds, and I'll be right back when this is done. Now with this done, is the first thing I'm gonna click is the setup bat. And the engine build will be roughly around 100 gigabytes. Just letting you know, 4.25 is roughly around 100 gigabytes. I installed it a day ago on my laptop, so yeah, around 100 gigabyte. So also that we have the most up-to-date SDK version for Playfab. I'm gonna leave this link here in the video description. And what we just want to click on here is download source code. And then we can just click on 4.24. And I think I need to download the whole folder. Yes, I need to download the whole project here, which should be very, very quickly. And what we're gonna use in here is the 4.24 version and the Playfab plugin. I'm gonna show it in detail later when we get to the step after installing the engine. Just want to get this done. All right, our prerequisite now downloaded. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna click on generate project files and the bat file. So what it does, it sets up our Visual Studio file. Also, I recommend everybody, especially when you work with 4.25, to install Visual Studio Community 2019. After this done, we see a new file in here, which is our ue4.sln, which is our solution file for Visual Studio. And if you have Visual Studio installed, just double click on it and it should load it up with no issue. Will take a few seconds still. And what we want to do is right click on our UE4 project in here and set up startup project. And what we do right now is we right click on this and we click build. This will build the engine from source. This will take very long. It took around 2 hours on my laptop, but I hope on my computer it will only take like 30 to 40 minutes. It is highly dependent on your CPU, so yeah, it's gonna take a while and you can't really do anything about that. So get yourself a coffee, watch a GDC talk, and come back when it's done. All right, so I'm back now and I am in my project directory. The first thing I want to do is I want to right click on my project, switch Unreal Engine version, and I have my source build on UE 4.25. So next thing is I want to right click, make a new folder, and I'm going to call this plugins, because we manually install 4.25 because it's not yet supported officially, but I found out that 4.24 version works fine. So Playfab plugin, what we can do, we can just drag this plugin into our plugins folder. Now we see we have a Playfab plugins folder. And now if we just run this, we can load it anyway, but we need to do one little thing inside the plugin as soon as we generate our first our SLN file. So let me just really quickly let it run through, and I'll be right back. So after all of this, we now have our project in 4.25 or whatever version you're running on a source build with Playfab installed, meaning if I go in my code folder and open my game instance main, all my code is still in here and should still be working. So what can we do now that we have a source build of UE 4.25? The first thing is, most of the people that want to build a source build want to also build a server, meaning they want to compile on a server and not just a client. The issue is if we go into File, Package Project, and if we go under Windows, we don't have any options for building for server. And we don't have any options here to change our target to server. So we're gonna do that first. Let me actually check something out. If I go in my Solution Explorer. All right, so we can't do that yet because we haven't turned this into a C++ project. So how we can turn this into a C++ project and also work on some stuff I anyway want to cover later on the line is we can go ahead and click on File, New C++ class. And in my case, I want to generate a game instance because I want to show some nifty stuff you can do to do some fancy stuff with having now the ability to build dedicated servers and to limit stuff that should only be packaged for the server and not for the client. So if I go into show all classes and type in game instance and click on this game instance, we see now this is our normal game instance we have here as a blueprint, but as a C++ file, meaning we can add more stuff to this file and then reparent this file, and then we can access the stuff we put in our custom game instance into our game instance that we have in blueprints, meaning we can do C++ stuff and then use it inside blueprints. With this, I'm just gonna click next. And what I'm gonna call this is Playfab game instance, just as an example. And I'm gonna put this into core and then networking. There you go. So this is gonna create a folder in our sources, which is called code, and then it will create a folder called networking. So I'm just gonna click create class, and I'm gonna be back when this finished compiling. So after this compiled, it should have automatically opened up Visual Studio. If not, just click on File, Open Visual Studio, and which should just open Visual Studio if it didn't. And we just created a game instance file, which is, well, we created a class. And a class is a header and a C++ file. So we have a header with a class constructor, with a class definition, and we have a C++ file. So we won't need the C++ file, but we will need the header. But before we get into this, I want to go on to the right side into plugins, our Playfab plugin, Playfab. Otherwise, we will have later on issues with building, and go on Playfab plugin.u plugin. Go in here, and engine version we can just set to 4.25. This will fix any build issues if we try to build a server, because I have tried this on my laptop already yesterday, and I ran into issues because it was still, like, the plugin was 4.24, so it didn't allow me to build it. So I changed it to 4.25 and it worked fine. So with this created, we can really quickly just do some stuff, because now we have more options to more stuff. Normally you would just have access to debug, editor, and client, but now we also have access to Debug Server, which is the main thing we are focusing on. So what if we want to store a variable which only should be included if we build a server? So let me just really quickly make an example for that. So in here, I want to make a public variable, which is gonna be a view property. And this is gonna be blueprint read, right? And we wanna edit it. Yeah, edit anywhere. There we go. Let me just make sure I spelled it properly. Edit anywhere. There we go. And that variable, we probably want to store some text, especially if you are working with Playfab. I think I accidentally said GameSparks before. I'm sorry for that. If we are working with Playfab, we will have a secret key which we will need on the server to run specific events on the server. So it would make sense that we just make an F string. So let's make an F string, and we can call it, for example, GameSparks key. And we're gonna set this to nothing for now, because we don't know what to set it to yet. So actually, let's make a macro and define it based on what platform we launch. So if I type in hash if, this is a preprocessor check in which we can provide we can provide definitions to do different stuff. So the definition we are looking for is UE_server, all in caps, and we want to make an N if. There we go. So if we are running UE server, we want to run this bit of code, and just make sure it's above the U class because it's not part of the U class. So if we are running UE server, so if it's defined, we want to define something. So the thing we want to define is a macro, and in our case, let's just call it Playfab key. And then in brackets behind it, we can, for example, set a value to it. So we can, for example, set this Playfab key to the actual Playfab key, but in my case, I'm just gonna set it to a string just to be able to log it. So I'm gonna call it Playfab key. And we see it's grayed out. Why? Because we're currently running on a development editor client. Wait, or can't read my configuration, so let me just really quickly properties. Okay, I don't know. We're definitely running development editor. Okay, so because we're running in an editor, we don't have our UE server defined because we're running on a client and not a server. Like, we don't try to build server, we're trying to build a editor. So, and if we then here put an else statement, so if we're not running on a server, we can define this macro u Playfab key, for example, to just nothing, because we just want to set it to nothing if it's not defined. So, and how we can actually check if this works, if we go from development to server, development server, development server. There we go. Let's wait a second till all our defines are set. This should actually be defined. Let's go into Debug Server, just making sure that if it doesn't work, I'm gonna really quickly look up if I made a mistake somewhere. So yeah, I'll be right back. All right, I don't know why this is not turning if I switch to development server. Why this is not actually getting set, but it is getting set when I build. I just checked it again on my laptop, just making sure that I'm not doing anything wrong. And apparently, like yesterday, it worked fine. It got like, it maybe needs some time, but yesterday worked fine when I tried it, and it actually lit up. So I have no idea what I did differently. But after we define this variable, like after we define this macro, not a variable, we want to actually do something with the macro. And the thing we want to do is we want to actually set our GameSparks key to that macro. Why do we do this? This actually determines if it gets built into the engine, like into the game build you release. Meaning if you have this check here, you can also do this with functions. So if you have this inside a function, you can do a client version and a dedicated server version, meaning the one only actually builds on the client and the other one only actually builds on the server, meaning you can have code that clients can access, especially with keys, with anything very, very important that you don't want to give out to clients. You can use this, because this way it will never get shipped to the client, like to the user, but it will be included in the server for the server to doing operations that is necessary for. All right, so let me actually go again on here and set this at startup project, development editor, just making sure, development editor. And now we want to launch. Which is going to take a second, so I'll be right back. Alright, just pointing out my mistake very quickly. You need to make a space between your macro and your variable. So, in here, if I now go into GI main, what we want to do is we want to reparent this blueprint. So how we can do this is if we click on File, Reparent Blueprint, and we have, I think I called it GameSparks. Or did I actually call it Playfab? Yes, I actually called it Playfab Game Instance. I also changed the variable name here to be Playfab Key. I've worked too much with GameSparks in the past, so I'm sorry for my little mistakes. So, but now we can go show inherited variables, which do Playfab Game Instance, Playfab Game Instance, you probably, and why doesn't it show up? Do I already have a variable? So if I now type in Playfab key, do I need to really quickly compile and save it and reopen it, maybe? No. Why do I not have access to this variable? Let me really quickly restart and I'll be right back. All right, I just saw it already showed up. So what we can do now is we can grab this Playfab key, and what we can simply do is we can print string it. Meaning now, also we can do some appending to it, so we can append it. And for example, we can type in Playfab key is : and if we click play as the client and also open the right map, I think it's test map, there we go. We can see Playfab key is nothing because we don't have a Playfab key set. So this was the client version. And now I really quickly want to just set up everything for the server so we can build the server in a second. And I'm also going over how we can actually set up a file to make our life a lot easier. So we can just really quickly go to edit, project settings, and just for showing purposes, I'm gonna really quickly server default map to test map, and I'm gonna set all those maps to test map, test map. And game instance is gonna be our GI main. and select game mode, default game mode. This should all be fine. Now, over here, file, package project, we have a build target option right now. What does this mean? It means we can actually switch build target to build server. And I'm just gonna really quickly go over how to do this. So, if we just really quickly close this down and close Visual Studio, I want to stop debugging, yes. Close Visual Studio down, and we click in our folder structure and go to our, where's my Unreal projects? Nope, I think I have them in documents, Unreal projects. Nope, let me really quickly find it. All right, inside our folder, in our source file, we want to create a new file, which I'm gonna call, so a new text document. And this is gonna be our Playfab tutorial server.target.cs. And I'm gonna right away copy this string here. Yes, I want to change it. So our server CS, if I double click on it, I can open it in Visual Studio. So what I want to do first of all is I want to using Unreal build tool. There we go. And the other thing we want to using is system.collections.generic. So put a semicolon behind this, and we want to make this a public class server target. There we go. And this is gonna inherit from target rules. There we go. And inside here, we want to make two curly brackets, one open, one closed, and we want to make a public constructor of this. So Playfab target, and what we want to input is target info, which is going to be called target. And then over here, we want to make a base target. There we go. Now we need two more curly brackets in here, and we want to set our type. Type equals to target type dot server, because we want to build a server, and extra module names dot add. What we want to add is just, I think this, let me really quickly check. So, and where I'm taking this from is I'm just checked the build target build.cs right here, and I moved most of the code over, but use my own stuff. And I need to fix this because this needs to be a Playfab tutorial. What am I doing wrong? Just checking. Oh yeah, that should be a semicolon, not a colon. There we go. So now if we launch our project, we should have this as a build option. So now, and if we click on File, Package Project, Build Target, we have a Playfab tutorial server target, which means we can now build servers. So I'm gonna do that in a second, but I'm gonna check something really quickly. I'm just gonna make it go into project settings and make sure everything is still set to test map, game instance, main, perfect. So now I'm just gonna go package project, make sure I have that server selected, and I'm gonna build a Windows 64 file. And on my desktop, I'm gonna make a new folder, which I'm gonna call tutorial build. And inside tutorial build, I'm gonna make a client, and I'm gonna make a server. Due to us not really having a client that can connect to a server, we're just gonna make a really quick log check if it actually logs the right thing. So I'm gonna select that folder and just build. Now that we're finally done with this, I can minimize that, and close this, and go into my tutorial build. go to the server. I'm not gonna build the client because the server just took around an hour to build and I have no idea why this was. I think I'm just underestimating how good my PC is. So, and I'm gonna right click. Oh God, I have not, okay. So I need to make a, who? Okay, it's that, okay. So I need to make a, I don't know what it's called in English right now. But after, and then I need to right click on this. And after the exe part, I need to add a space and then dash log, so we can log the console. So if I now double click on this, we can see our logging of our console. Oops. There we go. And in here, we should see our, where is it? Starting engine, where is it? Simon, called Playfab key, there it is. So we actually log our Playfab key. And if we would run our client here, we can see we don't log this Playfab key. So what it means, we define it on the server, but not the client. So this way, we actually log code out from the client, like I explained earlier. And now that I have the example, it makes a lot more sense. This is also a way to build servers for AWS and or Microsoft's Azure cloud. So I know this is a bit of a different video, but I just want to go over this because somebody asked me how they can actually hide the Playfab key from users. So I just thought I'm gonna wrap this into a tutorial. And yeah, if you found it useful, please let me know. If you have requests for future tutorials, let me know. But with this said, I wish you all a great day, and I'm sorry for this massive video. Have a nice day, and goodbye.